When we think of people that have made an impact on our lives, it's easy to think of well-known celebrities or public figures whose influence has reached global proportions. But sometimes the people who touch our lives the most are those we encounter every day, even if they don't live in our part of the world. Welcome back to the channel. Today we will meet a man who is tormented by his memories. After a heroic deed, he was ready to give up on life. In today's video, we'll learn how an extraordinary cat saved him from death. If you want to know more about this amazing story, stay with us until the end. Before we get into today's story, be sure to hit that like button for more interesting stories. The protagonist of our story is a British war veteran named Chris. He's an expert in explosive ordnance disposal, which means he's responsible for getting rid of potentially explosive objects. Chris has been working in this position since 2007. During his career, he had to perform many dangerous tasks. He defused thousands of explosives in Afghanistan and Iraq. And unfortunately, he stepped on one of the mines himself. His leg was amputated above the knee due to severe injuries. It was a very difficult period for him. He couldn't find a purpose in life anymore. He was also diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So when his wife left him, he decided to take his own life. Fortunately, he changed his mind at the last moment and wrote, "I was lucky enough to fail in my attempt to take my own life. But I still wasn't sure if I wanted to try again or not." He tried to move on with his life, but couldn't find a reason to live. All he could remember were explosions, screams, pain, and loss. This went on for 7 years. Then he heard about an animal shelter in the Peruvian Amazon where he could help some animals and took his chance. He arrived at the shelter run by a woman named Catherine. There were all kinds of animals there: monkeys, squirrels, reptiles, birds, and of course cats. The war veteran quickly got down to business and started working. At first he didn't pay much attention to anything else going on around him. But as time passed, he began to enjoy the beauty of nature. He spent most of his time with the local ocelots. They needed his help and care. That's what gave him a reason to live. Soon he realized he liked working with these animals. He learned how to provide them with the best possible care, how to feed them and train them. Once a ranger at the sanctuary spotted a female ocelot dragging herself along the ground. She was very weak, and she probably wouldn't have survived if the workers hadn't seen her in time. When the animal was brought to the shelter, the vets diagnosed her with severe emaciation, hypothermia, and wounds all over her body. Her muzzle and paws were the worst affected. The poor animal couldn't walk without excruciating pain. Fortunately, everyone at the shelter did everything they could to save her. And after some time, the ocelot became much better. However, the vet soon noticed that she was pregnant. Since the condition of the mother's body was so bad, it was recommended to make an ultrasound under anesthesia. Fortunately, the examination showed that the kittens were doing fine. This meant that the pregnant ocelot needed extra food. Every day they fed her boiled chicken and fish and vitamins. Of course, it was also necessary to ensure that she could give birth without any problems. A month later, she gave birth to 3 healthy kittens. She was so grateful to the people who saved her life and the lives of her babies that she lapped their faces and rubbed against them. And of course, the staff of the shelter were delighted with this news. The female ocelot gave her kittens their first lessons in hunting, taught them how to behave in the wild, climb trees, and swim. Unfortunately, one of the kittens fell out of its mother's den and injured its paw. The little animal was taken to the vet. Its condition was critical. The kitten couldn't do anything on its own. It couldn't eat, drink, or use the litter box. Taking care of the kitten was a real challenge, but no one at the center was going to give up on saving the little animal. They warmed it up, fed it milk, and petted it. Little by little, the kitten got stronger. As soon as it got a little older, it was returned to its mother. It stayed close to its mother until it was 6 months old. At that age, the little Ocelot was already quite independent. However, it would be wrong to assume that the kitten was ready to return to the wild. No matter how good the conditions are at the shelter, it can never replace the wild nature. So it was decided that the Ocelot would live with humans a little longer. One day, one of the employees came up with the idea to teach the Ocelot to ride a bicycle. First, the animal was given a name, Mika, and then the training began. It was hard for the Ocelot to sit on a bike, but with each passing day, it was getting better. At first, someone had to move the bike, but later the Ocelot itself started moving it. The Ocelot learned to control the bike and even go up a small hill. Everyone at the shelter was thrilled with Mika's progress. But her greatest pride was Chris. He took the Ocelot everywhere with him, including on long walks in the jungle. During one of these walks, the Ocelot suddenly disappeared. Chris immediately began looking for the animal. Fortunately, it was soon found. An hour later, the Ocelot was back at the shelter. It was clear that Mika missed her wild life. So it was decided to return the trained Ocelot to nature. Before that, she was fitted with a GPS tracker. Now the shelter employees could track where the Ocelot was at all times. 2 months later, they were shocked to discover that Mika was just a few miles away from the shelter. The Ocelot had obviously liked living next to humans too much and kept returning to its old home. That's why it was decided to leave the tracker on Mika and start an experiment. The Ocelot was once again released into the wild. She had to choose between freedom and life with humans. A year later, the staff of the shelter discovered that Mika was expecting a baby. Soon she gave birth to 2 kittens. For a while, the Ocelot was afraid to appear near the shelter. Then she slowly began coming closer and closer. Once Mika brought her kittens to the shelter, she felt safe here. She knew she could always count on the help of people. After spending some time at the shelter, the ocelots returned to their natural habitat. Several months later, the employees of the shelter received a notification that one of the ocelots was in danger. The animal was trapped in a hunter's snare. Without thinking twice, Chris and another employee rushed to the rescue. They managed to free the Ocelot. The hunter who set the trap was fined, and the Ocelot was returned to the shelter. After all these adventures, it was decided to keep the Ocelot at the shelter. She loved the people who took such good care of her and her kittens. Thus, the trained Ocelot remained at the shelter forever. Watching Mika grow up, Chris finally understood that he wasn't alone in this world. He had a purpose and a reason to live. Thanks to the Ocelot, he learned to love again, both animals and humans. Looking at these amazing creatures, Chris felt inner peace. He learned to live again. Together with other shelter employees, he continued to work with the ocelots, helping them adapt to human society and then return to nature. Chris is now in charge of the Ocelot Rehabilitation Program at the Amazon Rescue Center. He and his colleagues have helped dozens of these beautiful animals heal and return to the wild. Chris believes that someday he'll be able to do the same. In 2022, a documentary called Wildcat was released. It tells the story of Chris and his work with the Ocelots. The documentary won an Emmy Award, which is a huge success for the former soldier. After the premiere of the film, Chris said that he was very pleased with the result. He hopes that viewers will see how important it is to help animals. The documentary was watched by millions of people. Chris became famous all over the world. He continues to work at the shelter, helping animals and people. Today, Chris is doing well. He has a reason to live. He helps animals in need, and he's achieved worldwide fame. Perhaps his meeting with the Ocelot was not a coincidence. Fate brought them together so that they could help each other. Chris helped the Ocelot survive, and the Ocelot gave the man a reason to live. Now let's talk about the interesting facts related to this amazing animal. An ocelot is a medium-sized cat native to the Americas. It's one of the most beautiful cats in the world. The ocelot's fur is unique. It's one of the rarest and most beautiful in the world. Each animal has its own color pattern. They say that if you look into an ocelot's eyes, you'll fall in love with it forever. If you like the story of the British veteran and the ocelot, please give us a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any new videos. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye.